Yeah, but you are aware that there's an invention called television, and on this invention they show shows, right?
Yeah.
Well, the way they pick TV shows is they make one show. That show's called a pilot. Then they show that one show to the people who pick shows, and on the strength of that one show, they decide if they want to make more shows. Some get chosen and become television programs. Some don't, become nothing.
Pilots are essential to the creation of a television show, as if that snippet from Pulp Fiction wasn't enough of a reminder. Some pilots serve as the first episode, while some showcase how the show's concept would be executed. Very rarely that those pilots get a public release after a year gets picked up or tossed. This video will cover 10 of those pilots that have not seen the light of day since their inception. Also, no, you won't be seeing any game shows on this list. Deal with it. With that out of the way, here are 10 lost TV pilots.
Sir, I thought we said no cannonballs.
Since its launch in September 2001, Adult Swim has become its own platform for weird and out there content, with such classics like Aqua Teen Hunger Force, C-Lab 2021, The Brack Show, Harvey Birdman Attorney at Law, Venture Bros, Squidbillies, Robot Chicken, Metalocalypse, Rick and Morty, and a bunch of other weird shit. And 12 Ounce Mouse falls into that weird category. Created by Aqua Teen's Matt Malaro, the show centers around an alcoholic mouse named Fitz, not that one, who does odd jobs to pay for his alcoholism. With his companion Skillet, Fitz begins to recover memories that he once had a wife and child who have now vanished. This leads him to seek answers about his past and the sinister conspiracy that seemed to be manipulating his world. Reception to the show has been mixed, with some praising the storyline while some criticizing the very cheap art style. The show originally ran for 2 seasons from 2005 to 2006, with a webisode, special, and additional 3rd season following soon afterwards. As with any TV show, a pilot was made to pitch to Adult Swim, and sometimes with Adult Swim pilots, they air on television before the series fully begins production. The episode Hired aired in June 2005, a whole 4 months before the first season kicked off. However, there was an early pilot for the show that cannot be found today. Or at all. The existence of this pilot was only brought up recently during a 2021 interview with editor John Breeston for the Corndog Central website, revealing that only a small number of staff members were aware of the pilot, and that the character of Golden Joe was voiced by then Adult Swim Vice President Keith Crawford as opposed to Vishal Rani in the series, and was originally Fitz's boss as opposed to Shark in the series. Breeston will go on to state that the pilot was not saved, saying, "I wish I saved the pilot episode. Only Malaro and I know about it. It's lost to time now. I kind of hate myself for not documenting this history. It's so rare." Meaning that this is the only pilot on this list that has a 0% chance of being recovered, as it's gone for good. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is an ever-evolving entity of pop culture. Since the release of Iron Man in 2008, this franchise based off Marvel Comics has seen overwhelming success, with to date 30 theatrical films, 20 television shows being released and building upon each other, with a further 11 films and 13 television shows being set for a release in the future, with each installment resulting in both a healthy payday for Marvel Studios and Disney and an ever-growing fandom. With so much content released, it seems that everything that was planned a long time ago ended up becoming a reality, whether the result would please the audience or not. Well, that's not entirely the case. Aside from Edgar Wright's Ant-Man, a film about the Inhumans, and the occasional Incredible Hulk sequel, nothing that was planned a long time ago that never came to fruition can really be clarified as a missed opportunity for the ever-evolving franchise. Film-wise, that is. As for the television side, it's changing every minute. Back when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Carter were airing on ABC and drawing in huge ratings, there were plans for a spin-off of the former to be made. The spin-off, entitled Marvel's Most Wanted, would have centered around ex-SHIELD agents Bobby Morse and Lance Hunter as they tried to evade a series of enemies after a bounty was placed on them. They soon make an alliance with Dominic Fortune and his niece Christiana Santos that they are not too thrilled about, as they help the former SHIELD agents fight off the enemies and uncover the conspiracy against them. Originally announced as Mockingbird in 2011, it was revived as Marvel's Most Wanted in 2015 with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. actors Adrian Palicki and Nick Blood set to reprise their roles, with Spike Lee veteran Delroy Lindo set to play Dominic Fortune, and future Moon Knight actress Fernanda Andrade was cast as his niece. Filming for the pilot of Marvel's Most Wanted commenced in early 2016 with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. director Billy Gerhardt helming the project. Things were looking up for the pilot as industry insiders predicted in April 2016 that it'll be another series pickup for Marvel and ABC. But the very next month, ABC did a 180 and did not pick up the series, with ABC executives not being very pleased with the pilot. This was also around the same time that Agent Carter was cancelled due to low ratings despite the positive reception from viewers. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. would continue to air on ABC until itself ended in 2020. Any future television series by Marvel would later be resorted to streaming with at least one exception. When asked about the pilot in 2018, head of Marvel Television Jeff Loeb said, "That's an ABC question. We can't release it. It's so good." Since then, the pilot has never been mentioned by Marvel or Disney, and currently no footage or stills have surfaced of the pilot, and with the Marvel Cinematic Universe resorting its television output to Disney+, it's unlikely we'll ever see it. Oh boy, where to begin? It's safe to say that this little blue train isn't going away anytime soon. No matter how much the franchise keeps hitting a new low.
Tonight, Steve Levine finds out how Thomas the Train ended up on the same page with an adult sex manual.
Even though its original run ended only recently, Thomas and Friends may be the most iconic and longest-running children's property in recent memory, aside from Sesame Street, The Wiggles, Purple Devil, and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. First starting as a series of books entitled The Railway Series by Reverend Wilbert Awdry in 1945, it would later become the children's icon it is today thanks to the hugely successful series that premiered in 1984 and would last until 2021. However, before the toys, blankets, toothpaste, weird YouTube videos, and series became what it is today, it was a very different story. Wilbert Awdry was very wary of another television adaptation of the Railway series being made after the first two failed attempts to have one made failed horribly. Then along came Britt Allcroft, who in 1979, while making a documentary about British steam trains, met with Awdry and became intrigued by the characters in Awdry's books, and expressed interest in bringing the books to life. After securing the rights from the book's then publisher, K & Ward Limited, she spent the next 2 years on deciding how the books could be brought to life. After meeting with the brilliant director and model maker David Mitton, it was decided that live-action models would be the route to go. While this wasn't the first time a television adaptation of the books has used live-action models to portray the characters, the models here were made from the ground up. After Britt mortgaged her house to fund the series, production on the pilot began on the C stage at Clearwater's Battersea Studios in March 1983. The plot of the pilot was taken from the third story of Book 8 of the Railway series, Down the Mine, in which Thomas gets karma after teasing Gordon about his fall into a ditch, and it would be the latter that would end up saving him. And while the budget of this pilot wasn't particularly high, it did attract the attention of former Beatle Ringo Starr, who would not only narrate the pilot, but would go on to be the voice of the first 2 seasons of the show. Filming on the pilot concluded after 3 weeks and was eventually screened after production concluded, and was so well received that ITV greenlit the series that would start airing on October 9th, 1984. And the rest is history. The Down the Mine story would later be remade into the 25th episode of the first season, and here is where things get interesting. Several shots from the pilot ended up being reused In the episode, most famously a shot of Thomas going past Nafrit's station, and the differences in Thomas's model can be noticeable. Not only that, a shot of Annie, a close-up of Thomas's back hook,
Giggity.
and 3 shots of the Fat Controller were also reused from the pilot. As to the whereabouts of the pilot is now said to be in the archives of the current rights owners of Thomas & Friends, Mattel, along with all the master tapes for the series and the tapes for its American introduction series, Shining Time Station. And although it has not resurfaced since the successful test screening, an email exchange with Ian McHugh has revealed that there are plans of restoring the pilot for a possible release in time for the Railway Series' 80th anniversary in 2025. However, there is speculation online that the pilot has already been digitized and clips of it have been passed around privately. With the recent leak of the pilot's script and various pieces of concept art,
you never know these days.
remember 2000s era Teletoon? 16, Total Drama Island, George of the Jungle, Chaotic, Bakugan Battle Brawlers, Wayside, Totally Spies, and a bunch of other fever dreams. And the one that's not really well remembered a whole lot anymore is Jimmy Two Shoes. The short-lived series about a happy-go-lucky boy named Jimmy who wants to find fun everywhere he goes, which is a bit hard considering he lives in Miseryville, an area that is filled with doom and misery that is run by Lucius Heinous VII. While the show premiered in 2009, development began 3 years earlier in 2006 and had a much different feel. Originally, the series would have taken place in actual hell. Heinous was originally the devil, as it wasn't evidenced enough, and instead of being Jimmy's best friend, Heloise was a brain-damaged serial killer who was sent to hell, and although she has a crush on Jimmy, she regularly tortures him. All that and a bunch of other dark was present in the 6-minute pilot made to pitch the series that was funded by one of the show's investors, with the intention that the show would get picked up with all the messed up stuff intact and would be for Teletoon's tween demographic. However, things changed when the yet-to-be-launched Disney XD came aboard and wanted the show to be more for the 6 to 11 demographic, and a lot of the dark elements that were present in the pilot were taken out, and the project would end up being more like the show we know today. Hell became Miseryville, Heloise became Jimmy's best friend, and Lucifer became Heinous. Along with the references to Hell, the character designs were also changed as the producers were not fans of them. One of the show's creators, Edward Kay, also revealed in an email exchange that Corey Doran voiced Jimmy in the pilot as he did in the series, and also revealed that the pilot, while confirmed to still exist, is currently being held by the investors of the pilot as they feared it would leak, and neither Kay nor co-creator Sean Scott were allowed to own a copy. Various pieces of concept art and a collection of stills from the pilot can be found today, and the dark tone the pilot was aiming for is very evident. El Supersonic Hugh did a video on this pilot, and it is really worth a watch, so go check it out if you haven't already. If this pilot does find its way online one day, it will be a really interesting watch. Quite possibly one of the best sitcoms of the past 20 years, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is one of those rare shows that hits it out of the park every single time. It's been airing since 2005 and doesn't appear to be slowing down anytime soon, and typically shows that go on for this long tend to see a decline in content. But It's Always Sunny is somehow still hilarious after all these years, and the story of how this show got off the ground back in 2005 is really interesting. Back in the early 2000s, Charlie Day, Glenn Howerton, Rob McElhenney, and his then-girlfriend Jordan Reed were struggling actors in Los Angeles with the odd gig here and there. While living in New York, Day was making comedic home videos with future 24 actor Logan Marshall Green and future Always Sunny veterans Jimmy Simpson, Nate Mooney, and Cricket himself David Hornsby. This, combined with McElhenney writing screenplays in between jobs, it was decided that they could make their own comedic home movies. After purchasing the then newly released Panasonic DVX100A and 2 VHS tapes for $85, they shot 2 home movies in their apartments that would eventually become the premise for the episode Charlie Has Cancer. It's worth noting that instead of taking place in Philly, it was set in LA and focused around 3 struggling actors as opposed to owning a failing bar in the series. The cast for the titled It's Always Sunny on TV, named after a well-known Aha song, it was almost the same as it was when the series aired, except for Sweet D, who was played by Reed in the videos, and Mac was played by David Hornsby instead of McElhenney. After viewing the videos, Day said that it was not good. But upon realizing the videos had actual potential for a TV series, it was reshot with McElhenney now in the classic role of Mac, and future Always Sunny veteran Mary Elizabeth Ellis was added as the waitress, along with Firefly's Marina Baccarin as Cameron. After filming wrapped, again, it was shopped to various networks including Fox, HBO, Comedy Central, VH1, MTV, and CBS, and they ended up getting offers from at least 4 of them. It wasn't until they went to FX, and they loved what the 26-minute It's Always Sunny on TV had. But there was one more hurdle. The show was successfully greenlit, but they had to reshoot the pilot again.
Again and again!
This time with a higher budget and a professional crew. The setting was changed to Philadelphia, the title was changed to reflect the change in location, and the 4 main characters are now owning a failing bar, Patty's Pub. Amidst these changes, Reed and McElhenney broke up and the role of Sweet D went to Caitlin Olsen. After filming wrapped, again, FX ordered a 7-episode first season of the series, and while the season had low ratings, its positive critical reception and the later addition of Danny DeVito secured the show's future as the longest-running American sitcom on television. So far, we only have footage from the second version of It's Always Sunny on TV and the professional shot pilot after FX greenlit the show. No footage from the first version of It's Always Sunny on TV has surfaced, and given that Charlie Day said straight up that it was not good, it may not be released anytime soon. Not every so often that a celebrity's limited time on Earth can leave such a lasting impression for years after they are gone. While there are many examples of this, like James Dean, Aaliyah, River Phoenix, Selena, Corey Monteith, and many others. But if there was one comedian who left us too soon before leaving a huge impression on pop culture, it's Mitch Hedberg. Beginning his stand-up career in 1989, his surreal humor filled with often short one-liners and rockstar-like charisma made him a favorite at comedy festivals. Most notably, the Just for Laughs Comedy Festival, where his humor is on full display for the Montreal crowd.
That's my favorite introduction I've ever had. You might have seen this next comedian on the David Letterman show, but I believe more people have seen me at the store. And that would be a better introduction. You might have seen this next comedian at the store, and people would say, hell yes I have.
Even the small number of TV roles he got are pretty memorable.
Hey, I did not lose a leg in Vietnam so that I could serve hot dogs to teenagers.
You have both your legs, Frank.
Like I said, I did not lose a leg in Vietnam.
At the height of his fame in 2001, he filmed a pilot for MTV called The Mitch Hedberg Project, and the premise sounds something straight out of a Steve-O video. The pilot was shot over a week-long comedy tour Hedberg was doing with his wife, Lynn Shawcroft, Eddie Carnival, also known as
Possum Man,
and Doug Stanhope with Rico as the master of ceremonies, and contained interviews, pranks, and snippets of stand-up from the tour. It's worth noting that the exact time frame of when this pilot was filmed and pitched to MTV is unknown, but it is known that a rough cut of the pilot was assembled on July 17, 2001, as according to this card from the pilot. The exact reason why this pilot was rejected is unknown, and any other details about this pilot are either unknown or can't be confirmed. Before 2019, no footage from this pilot was available online, but on December 18, 2019, a documentary about Eddie Carnival was uploaded to YouTube and featured a lot of footage from the unreleased pilot. The release of the documentary brings to light that Carnival has a copy of the pilot, but the actual rights to the pilot are unknown, making an official release of the pilot very unlikely. Whether you love it, hate it, or can't stop making memes about it, Family Guy is undeniably popular, and just like The Simpsons and South Park, it's not going away anytime soon, even if the decline in quality in each installment becomes more noticeable. Created by Seth MacFarlane, who originally worked on Johnny Bravo with Butch Hartman, if you could believe it, the show centers around the Griffin family in their home of Quahog, Rhode Island, as they get into all sorts of shenanigans. And despite getting the axe after the first season, being brought back 3 years later due to high DVD sales and Adult Swim reruns, and the various lawsuits that would follow, the awards and high ratings say otherwise. And while the show first started airing right after Super Bowl 33 and hasn't slowed down since, its test pilot looked like something from an alternate timeline. After seeing MacFarlane's shorts, The Life of Larry and Larry and Steve, the latter of which aired on Cartoon Network's What a Cartoon in 1997, Fox took notice of MacFarlane's talents and gave MacFarlane a budget of $50,000 to develop a 15-minute test pilot for his show, Family Guy. Production on the pilot commenced with Jim Keeshan Productions co-creating the pilot while MacFarlane animated it out of his own house for 6 months. The pilot was shown to Fox, who greenlit the series, and the show premiered right after the Denver Broncos won 34-19 against the Atlanta Falcons. And the rest is history. The plot of the pilot will be recycled into the first episode of the series, Death Has a Shadow, and the differences are very clear. Footage of the pilot was used in an interview with MacFarlane and a promo for the show that aired during the Super Bowl, and the first 7 minutes of the pilot would eventually see release on the Volume 2 DVD in 2003, which can be found online. Stills from the missing half of the pilot can also be found online. While it's not exactly clear why the whole pilot wasn't included in the Volume 2 DVD, a possible clue is that the namesake of the production company who co-created the pilot took all the credit for making the pilot and took Fox and MacFarlane to court just 6 months after Family Guy started airing. The suit ended up getting thrown out in December 2000, and since Keeshan maybe owned the pilot, they aren't allowed to release the whole thing. While that may be a headache of a roadblock in getting this pilot found, there is something that should be considered. The stills from the missing half of the pilot I mentioned earlier that can be found online, they are from old tripod fan websites. One of them, from around 2002, has quick time download links to clips of the pilot that have not resurfaced. A still from the already released first half is also on the website and is in the same quality as the stills from the missing half. With this revelation being taken into account, it's likely a really low quality copy of the pilot was online at one point, but it appears that it has since vanished. So, it's very likely that this lost pilot to one of the most iconic animated shows on television is sitting on a hard drive somewhere. But other than that, any further details about the pilot and its current whereabouts are unknown. I think it's best to say that even though the network is called MTV, it did produce some great cartoons. Beavis and Butthead, Eon Flux, Daria, Downtown, Undergrads, Celebrity Deathmatch, and the one with the most cry for a continuation, Clone High. With the continuation set to arrive this year, Clone High may be the one that's still held in high regards, possibly due to its humor, character development, depth, and the creative team behind the show being behind the 2010s' most hilarious films. The show is often seen as a parody of teen dramas that were everywhere when it was airing, with its setting at the titular Clone High in Exclamation USA that's populated with clones of historical figures, and its main cast being clones of Abraham Lincoln, Joan of Arc, Gandhi, Cleopatra, and JFK that were created by the mad scientist Principal Scudworth. Not going to spoil the series to those who haven't seen it, but if you've seen it, you know where the continuation will start. Though originally, instead of MTV, Phil Lord and Christopher Miller pitched the show to Fox as Clone High School USA, and its pilot was overseen by Touchstone Television. Fox bought the show based off the concept alone, but passed on the series after seeing the pilot. The plot of the pilot and the voices of the pilot are unknown, but we do have a screenshot from the pilot and early character designs, with the latter being found by YouTuber Rebel Taxi along with the logo from the pilot, which would be posted to his Tumblr in 2016. No footage from the pilot has surfaced, though this would not be the only pilot on the list to be rejected by Fox and soon do the greatness it was destined for. Among the weird that aired on Adult Swim that would include either a washed-up superhero, talking fast food items, a crudely drawn mouse addicted to alcohol, a Marty and Doc ripoff, or a metal band, there was the Boondocks. An adaptation of Aaron McGruder's comic strip of the same name, the show focuses on the dysfunctional Freeman family made of brothers Huey and Riley and their grandpa Robert in the fictional, friendly, and very white suburb of Woodcrest. The show stands out on Adult Swim as being very unapologetic about pushing the envelope, and it's actually a blessing that the show aired on Adult Swim, as then-President Mike Laszlo told Magruder that due to cable's less restrictive policies, he can make the show he wants without watering it down. Speaking of watering it down, the television adaptation almost got that unfortunate treatment. When the comic strip was originally made for Hitlist.com, Magruder set out to pitch his strip as a syndicated comic strip and a television series. The first goal was met almost immediately when it made its national debut on April 19, 1999 with the help of the now defunct Universal Press Syndicate and became a huge success. But getting it on television was a different story. Fox ended up ordering a pilot for the television adaptation, and Magruder and future president of BET, Reginald Hudlin, ended up working on a 7-minute pilot for Fox, with the animation being more in line with the comic strip. During production, the team faced multiple difficulties, with Magruder stating in an interview with the AV Club in 2005, "We did our best to do a Fox show, but frankly, I don't think the difficulties we had at Fox would be exclusively to Fox. I just think broadcast television in general is a very restrictive place. It's tough to be funny because there are so many eyeballs and there's so much money at stake that I think everything is just kind of overthought. And it's tough to be daring and do something different, either with regards to content or even structure. It's a really rigid landscape, and you can honestly see it in the show. Because of these production difficulties, Fox rejected the pilot. The show would soon find its way to Cartoon Network, who expressed interest in airing the show on Adult Swim. And remember how earlier when Mike Laszlo said that due to cable's less restrictive policies, Magruder can make the show he wants without watering it down? Well, watered down was Laszlo's reaction to the Fox pilot, and as a result, Cartoon Network picked up the show for a 15-episode order. What came out was 4 seasons totaling 55 episodes ending in 2014, and a 2-season reboot being ordered by HBO Max, which is sadly no longer going forward. With the massive success of the television series, the pilot fell into obscurity until 21 seconds of the pilot were posted to Twitter by producer Carl Jones in 2016, which was soon taken down. The different animation style is very present in the released footage. There are also claims that the pilot was shown at several conventions, though I can't find any proof of any convention screenings of the pilot. But since Jones posted that clip to Twitter and the huge response it got, there is hope that the pilot will be posted in full online one day. And now we get to the modern weird that Adult Swim airs nowadays. The Eric Andre Show is an 11-minute fever dream of television. There's no other way to describe it. I mean, how can you describe a television show that has like this?
Order! 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 You know what I've never had in my life? Penguin meat.
Hear me smoking, smoking.
Yeah, you know, the usual thing you would see on Adult Swim. Though I do feel like this show is a live-action, more batshit crazier successor to Space Ghost Coast to Coast, which was actually the inspiration behind the show. The show premiered, or motorcycled its way onto Adult Swim in 2012. Just 1 month after Eric Andre's other show premiered on ABC, and is still airing on Adult Swim to this day, with a 6th season set to arrive this year. Although the show looks really insane to shoot, its development has public access feel written all over it. Andre was a struggling comedian during the 2000s, with only the role of the Geico Caveman and several odd stand-up gigs to his name. though he had the idea for the show for some time. Knowing very well networks wouldn't buy the show off the script alone, Andre, 30 Rock regular Hannibal Buress, directors Andrew Barchilin and Katal Sakura shot a pilot for the then titled
Duh Air Ache Andre Shoe
in an abandoned bodega in Brooklyn that they rented in the summer of 2009, which must have been nice shooting something under the JMC train in Brooklyn.
We'd have to like cut every 5 minutes because the J train would just be over us.
The man on the street segments were the last thing to be filmed for the pilot, and upon realizing they ran out of money and couldn't afford an editor, Andre took one for the team and spent a whole year learning Final Cut Pro to edit the pilot together. Once the pilot was complete, it was shopped to various networks, with one stating that it looks a little cheap and public access-y. It was then shown to Adult Swim, in which, upon seeing the pilot, Keith Crawford said that making the show was a no-brainer. The first season was shot in February 2012 and leapt onto Adult Swim just 3 months later. Any other details about the pilot are not entirely known aside from how cheaply made it was. In true Adult Swim fashion, though 2 skits from the pilot have since surfaced online, with one of Eric at a Civil War reenactment and one of Andre dressed as Ronald McDonald and heads to McDonald's, the latter of which was shown on Conan, so that's nice. Footage of the studio segments would later be shown in a special on the show's 5th season. Interestingly enough, segments of the pilot were shown during a 2013 Comic-Con panel, and the panel can't be found online, but the parts where the pilot is shown were either edited out or never recorded. The rest of the pilot has not surfaced, and given that the crew can show parts of the pilot, they have it in their power to release the full thing. Maybe like this. And there you have it, that's 10 lost TV pilots. I was really surprised by the reception the previous video got, and I'm happy to say that I got more videos in this vein coming down the line, though don't expect them to come out daily. The previous video came out earlier than expected because a YouTube channel, who shall remain nameless, got me worried that my video would become very dated by the time the channel started uploading what it promised, but it was just re-uploads of other people's content that you can easily find elsewhere. Anyway guys, I've been ComedyFan74, see you soon.